Begin transcribe log. At the time of recording, it is currently the 27th of Eden's Grave at approximately 7:23 p.m. The purpose of this log is to document durability test run 18 of alloy lot number 3245. The desired goal of this material is to form an effective heat sink in order to combat an overheating issue within harmonics core number 2, the details of which are recorded in archival log number 43. The specifications of alloy 3245 are as follows. After the failure of several fortification runes during recent tests, it was determined that a more cost-effective method of dispersing heat was needed, as the repair cost of using runes was deemed an unnecessary expense. After some experimentation, a hypothesis was created. I theorized that electroplating the internal crystalline structure of the innermost rings with a fine weave of orichalcum fibers will act as both a sufficient heat sink as well as a funnel for the excess energy to power other key systems within the machine. In theory, this would provide a 0.7% increase in overall power management. Should the experiment be a success, the arcane forging techniques used to create alloy 3245 are recorded within material log 14. The material composition is also contained therein for posterity and replication purposes. To test the material durability of alloy 3245, an electrical current of approximately 5% of the machine's total output will be passed through a 1x1 cube of the material, and any reactions will be observed from behind an abjuration barrier rated for both high voltage and flying debris. The cables are in good condition and are being attached to the material now. The cable is attached, and I will be stepping away and abjuring a barrier to interpose between myself and the material at a reliable distance. Haganat Barak Baksol. The barrier is created and appears to be holding stable. Additional eye protection is being deployed. I shall now connect the cable to a diode that will remain behind the barrier, and then connect the diode directly to the main power source. And activating the temporary core. The core is now active and appears to be reading at a nominal level, setting to 5% power. Accepted level has been reached and is holding. I shall return behind the barrier and open the circuit, performing one more last-minute check to ensure that all equipment is working properly. No issues have been found. Opening the circuit in 3, 2, 1. Pause transcription and erase last line. Await further instruction. I don't recall any deliveries or talks scheduled for today. And no notes in my day planner either. Curious. Perhaps a lost student. Although orientation must have covered the internal structure of the facility, As unusual as it might be, perhaps I have a visitor, and they are rude. Wonderful. I certainly hope you have a sufficient reason for interrupting my work. If you will direct your attention to the door you were striking entirely too hard, you will notice a very prominently displayed sign that simply bears the words, "Do not disturb," in very legible text, which you appeared to have ignored in its entirety, invalidating the entire reason of having a sign altogether. I can only assume you are here for some manner of clerical duty, possibly requiring a signature for requested goods. Though I did specify in my requisition directory that all personal deliveries must be forwarded to the quartermaster's office on sub-level 2, so I might retrieve them at my own convenience. Precisely for this reason, as a matter of fact, as exploring this unnecessary tangent has cost time, and therefore productivity that can be better spent elsewhere. You shall excuse me for being overly direct. However, I am currently rapidly approaching the limit of effort that I wish to expend on this interaction, so I will simply ask this. What do you want? A letter. It bears the seal of the Directorate. Lead researcher. It is with pride that the high seats of the Directorate write to inform you that the mandatory minimum amount of researchers for your project, codenamed Dreamcatcher, have been secured, and your project has been officially recognized by the Directorate and the nation of Anthem. We hope that the project bears fruit and encourage you to rise beyond and surpass limitation. Amaranthine Ambition, from the desk of the Directorate of Anthem Institute. That is concerning. I made no such formal request for recognition, and yet the Directorate have decreed to treat this venture of artifice as an official project, despite it being registered as a personal endeavor. That, alongside their misgivings of the field of artifice in its entirety, brings an unfortunate sense that one or more persons within stations of power are concealing their motivations. I wonder if this is an attempt to scrutinize the project, perhaps to gain intel in order to leverage it later. I had hoped to avoid this by privatizing it entirely, yet it seems some eyes still linger on me. I apologize. I forgot you were standing there entirely. It is of no consequence. Other matters required my attention. Based on the contents of this letter, it appears you have been selected to work under me as a research aide in this project. This is acceptable. Follow me inside, if you will, and mind the cables. It is a bit unkempt. A busy workplace is the mark of a busy mind, so do try not to trip and disrupt anything. I understand you might be feeling lethargic from your long journey. However, there are a few subjects to discuss before any continuation may occur. You seem surprised. It is rather obvious that you are not from Anthem. Your eyes are unusual, not the gray typical of purebloods. But being a hybrid is not enough evidence to reach that conclusion. Indeed, the most compelling supporting factor is that you lack an Ilia tattoo on your left arm. All citizens of Anthem possess one, and the fact that you do not marks you as a foreigner. I would hypothesize, based on your bone structure, facial features, and that you smell like rain, that you originate from the bronze tops. Is that an accurate assessment? I thought so. Well, of course I factored in your scent. We gather information and come to conclusions based on what we can perceive in the world around us. So I think such a smell would be needed in order to make an educated judgment, just as much as sight or any other sense. In any case, allow me to formally welcome you into the fold. I am Alyosha Tavreez, the lead researcher of Project Dreamcatcher. Actually, the only researcher. Since I was unaware you even existed, I have unfortunately not prepared any fanfare for your arrival. So if you feel the need, you may clap for yourself. And that's quite enough. With that out of the way, I must inform you that you have arrived at an inopportune moment during a test of a new material that I believe will be of use to the project as a whole. By my approximation, 32 minutes of progress has been lost since your arrival, and in the interest of preserving time, I desire to make some progress with what little effort remains. So, your first task as a research aide is to put on this eye protection and stand behind this barrier until the test is concluded, after which we will document the results. A simple routine that is the cornerstone of invention. Now, if you would stay right there, I shall continue from where I left off. Resume transcription. Research was temporarily halted by the arrival of a research aide bearing an official letter from the Directorate that will be recorded in the after-action report at the conclusion of testing. I will now resume the test of alloy 3245. As a reminder, this test will be using approximately 5% of the temporary core's maximum output. I am opening the circuit in 3, 2, 1. Circuit is fully opened. No noticeable change in the material structure. A new development. 2 seconds ago, the fibers of orichalcum within the material have begun to emit light, and are now growing in intensity at a steady rate. I presume the material is reacting to the immense heat generated by the core, and the fibers are compensating for the closing circuit. It appears that alloy 3245 has failed to disperse the heat, and has instead shattered. The test is considered a failure, and the cause of this will be given in the after-action report. End transcription, and catalog into archival log 44. It seems this was not a successful test. That is unfortunate. I believe that a solution to my issue would be reached with this experiment. There is no need to apologize. Clearly the material was flawed, if nothing else, possibly from its very conception, much like giraffes in a way. Yes, they are incredibly impractical animals. Are you aware that a newborn giraffe needs to be dropped from a typical standing height of its species to both break the amniotic sac and shock it into breathing? Horribly inefficient creatures. I digress. This does give you an opportunity to assist me in finding out what went wrong in the experiment, and hopefully how to improve upon it in future tests. Come with me if you please. Let us begin by examining the pieces of what remains in order to find a cause of the failure. Be careful not to cut yourself as you pick them up. They can be quite sharp. Very good. Now, let us take a more detailed look. A delamination has occurred between the orichalcum fibers and the rest of the material, no doubt as a result of the heat generated. Is that not obvious to you? I see. You do not have a way to detect magic without using a spell. Yes, I can do it through this lens, an enchanted piece of artifice that allows me to see beyond the normal range and scope of unassisted sight. I fashioned it from an existing enchanted item and added the additional features myself through the use of artifice to bond mechanical attachments that augment its original design into something more practical. It is a useful application, and serves as a small example of how artifice can be used in normal study. However, this field is not well received within Anthem. I am remiss to say that you have joined a controversial and not openly respected project. While still worthy of the title of mages, artificers are not as palatable as other spellcrafters here. Citizens of Anthem adhere to the old ways, where we draw deeply from the roots of the hierarchy of divinity, and hold steady to the purpose of humanity. But now is not the time for a history lesson. Perhaps during a break, but for now we have some cleaning to do, and then the test must be logged and reported. Now that it is a officially recognized project, the Directorate will be expecting updates periodically. Seeing as how there are now 2 researchers, I put forward the suggestion that we split the duties. I will begin writing the update, while you clean up the workplace. And do make sure to place the remnants of alloy 3245 in the receptacle there for recycling. Yes, I had almost forgotten as well. Welcome, researcher. I look forward to working with you. And on that subject, let's get back to work. Resume transcribe log. And despite my best efforts, the issue within harmonics core number 2 persists. As noted in archival logs 43 through 50, heat dispersal has continued to be a significant problem, one that I have struggled to address, much less overcome. After the initial failure of alloy 3245, new methods were theorized and tested, and so far, all have failed. A network of silver filament suspended in an ionized saltwater solution proved to be not sufficiently conductive. The amount of energy lost during transfer was not within an acceptable metric. Alongside the potential failure of the containment tubes within the inner rings, made for a significant safety risk as well. The creation of a microportal intended to siphon access heat buildup to an extra-dimensional space was a novel idea. Unfortunately, it is significantly difficult to create such a thing, and even more so to maintain it. This is not taking into account how costly this practice would be, as a new portal would need to be created and subsequently closed with every usage of the Dreamcatcher. Overall, it would seem that the most viable solution, in both function and cost, would be alloy 3245, as it was the most successful method thus far. Even if that success does mean that it survived the amount of heat generated for a few seconds longer than the other attempts. However, progress is not measured in leaps and bounds, rather in steps forward, or backwards in this case. End archival log. I assume that whoever opened my door has a reason to be here, and seeing as how there are only 2 individuals that would bother to enter this workspace, I can only assume that you have returned, researcher. If that is not the case, then I wish you a good day as you immediately exit my workshop. So it is you after all. Good to see that I do not have any other unsuspected visitors. After all, this is an active workspace, not a tourist attraction. I must comment, however, that you are quite early. If I recall your schedule, you currently have no classes, but you were not to report until the morning. While I am pleased to see that you understand the value of an early start, I must insist that you follow the timetable the Directorate has created for research aids. You are still a student within the Institute, and as such, your work and school life should be managed within what has been proven to be most effective. It is morning. I see. I appear to have lost track of time. My apologies, researcher. That is a correct assumption. If it is in fact morning, as you say, then I have indeed not stopped working, and instead continued throughout the night. Taking into consideration that I have repeated this action from the previous night, I am currently approaching 36 consecutive hours of work. I can tell from your body language that you do not approve of this action. I assure you, however, that I am more than capable of continuing my work. Many of the most respected mages to have ever graced the Institute can owe their success and breakthroughs to a practice of self-sacrifice, such as this. It is illogical to operate on the belief that something of worth can be gained without effort or trade. In keeping with that immutable fact, I willingly sacrifice rest in order to meet the project goals more efficiently. I am indeed aware of my own biological limitation, and I will have you know that I have yet to exceed them. My body may have innate limitation. However, my desire for a resolution is not subject to the same bounds, and the latter is far more worthwhile to my interests. Now, if we're finished exploring this unnecessary conversational tangent, let us continue on with our work. Before that, however, there are a few certain matters that need to be resolved before we continue. In the days following both your arrival and assignment to Dreamcatcher, I could not help but notice that you have yet to produce a personal set of tools, and have instead defaulted to using the ones that belong to me. I find this unacceptable. Perhaps within the Bronze Tops, this sense of communal ownership is more widely accepted. However, within my workspace, I abide a rigid interpretation of the term. So, in the interest of keeping what is mine, I have taken the liberty of requisitioning a few necessary items for you. If I recall, it should be orbiting one of the locked positions I placed on the ceiling. There it is. Allow me to bring it down for you. There we are. A finely crafted set of tools with an included belt and carrying case, originating from an associate of mine in Brookmore. I believe that you will find them more than sufficient for the project going forward. This is the part of the interaction where you would typically take the tools. Why is it that instead you are looking taken aback? I'm sorry, but I don't believe I understand the question. Are you asking how the plethora of objects above are maintaining a geostationary orbit path? Or are you simply wondering why they behave in that manner? That clarifies things a bit on my end. So, allow me to return the favor. One of the pitfalls of a research project, especially a venture of artifice, such as the Dreamcatcher, is the physical space required to work in, house, and store additional project materials. As you can plainly see, the space I have to work in is rather limited, and that conflicts with the amount of material required to perform any significant feat of mechanical engineering. Thankfully, I have dedicated most of my academic career to the School of Evocation Magic, more specifically to the field of graviturgy, of which I am a skilled practitioner. This specialization means that the manipulation of physical space is very much within my control. It is a rather simple matter to me to create a few gravity wells on the ceiling in order to have more available workspace and simply recall items or materials as they are needed. I recall how much of a cluttered mess this place was when I took over. Besides the practical benefits to the timetable of the project from having any required material on hand, using this method also saves any unnecessary expenses that would come about from requisitioning storage in an off-site location or having an extra dimension created. On the topic of expenses, I assume you might be wondering how to go about making personal purchases within Anthem. As a foreigner, you do not possess an Ilia. Thankfully, a workaround was created for foreign students enrolled in the Institute. This mark will function as your method of payment, a sort of pseudo-Ilia stamped on a metallic card. Not quite the same as possessing your own, but for the time you will be within the Institute, it will suffice. You may use that to requisition items or services, though I do caution you to use it wisely. Any requisition you make passes through the Directorate, and as such, is a direct reflection on yourself, as well as any project that you are a part of. And I do believe I've made it clear that Dreamcatcher is under enough scrutiny as it is. And while the Directorate are the most prominent eyes upon you, do not believe that they are the only ones. I have been noting the finer details of your work ever since you joined the project, seeing if you understand what tools to use in appropriate situations, as well as the methods you employ to solve any issues that arise. While at first I hypothesized that you were merely a Directorate planned to keep records of the project, you have shown an intuition for the craft. Taking that into consideration, you are either a very well-trained spy or merely an artificer. Whatever the case may be, since you are now properly equipped, I expect you to work to the best of your ability, or preferably beyond it. With that tangent concluded, we can now focus our attention fully on the work at hand. After reviewing the theories and experiment logs that have been attempted thus far, I have determined that reviewing a previous experiment is the most effective course of action. Specifically, I am referring to the experiment involving alloy 3245, the very same experiment that occurred during your introduction to the project. Alloy 3245 yielded the most positive results of any other, though it did not come without its own flaws that ultimately resulted in an unacceptable failure. I had originally believed that orichalcum fibers suspended in a piezoelectric crystalline medium would have proved sufficient to properly disperse the amount of heat that Dreamcatcher will be producing, as well as converting a portion of that heat into electrical energy to be recycled back into the machine in order to maximize its energy output. However, it seems that orichalcum fibers, while perfectly suited to transfer electrical current, are not capable of withstanding extreme heat output for any significant amount of time, and simply burn up within the crystals, which in turn results in the shattering of the entire structure. It appears the initial design is not even capable of handling a fraction of the power needed in order to run Dreamcatcher at its full capacity. But regardless, it is a poor craftsman that blames his tools or material. There is always a way forward. One simply needs to find it. Unfortunately, that has, thus far, eluded me. As you can see, I have expended no small effort in attempting to solve this issue. I have filled chalkboards with calculations and theories that simply do not work. and that chunk of alloy 3245 on the table taunts me with glimpses of a solution hidden deep within. In any case, perhaps a fresh perspective will prove useful in determining a way to bypass this material limitation. I have heard stories of the dangerous lightning storms that occur within the bronze tops, yet there are more than a few settlements that manage to flourish in spite of that. I wonder how this is possible. Being a resident of the area, perhaps you are uniquely inclined to offer some insight into the manner of electrical transference. Yes. Feel free to clear that chalkboard. It was a theory that eventually led to nowhere. Yes, that is indeed the structure of alloy 3245, though I do not see the importance of drawing it. I have the composition memorized quite thoroughly. Where we need to direct our focus is the primary issue facing the project at the moment. A fundamental transfer of electrical energy into thermal energy that proves too much for the material to handle and leads to a catastrophic failure. This we have already accurately determined. Orichalcum fibers are incredibly effective in electrical transference, both performance and cost, but do not meet the standard I need for heat resistance. I wonder if only this could be mitigated, or preferably outright stopped, then I believe the project would be able to continue unhindered. Excuse me. You believe that you might have a way to accomplish this? Present your theory, then. Explain. Yes, I am familiar with the practice of traditional metalworking. Suitable materials are mined alongside the solid fuel needed to heat and work raw ore. This practice still occurs within Anthem, but has diverged significantly from the methods the rest of the world uses. Anthem blacksmiths now typically utilize transmutation magic to greatly expedite the process, with no loss of quality. I fail to see the purpose of this line of questioning, and I would even call it superfluous. The process of additional heat being applied to forge metals is the opposite of what we are attempting to solve. In fact, introducing an access of air will only decrease the amount of time the orichalcum fibers remain viable, making them burn much more rapidly. But if the air was taken out of the equation, of course, a vacuum, forming an environment that is significantly below atmospheric pressure around the fibers, would theoretically allow them to continue functioning no matter how hot they became. And pressure manipulation of that scale can easily be achieved through graviturgy. That is brilliant. How did you think of such a thing? I see. Who would have thought that a similar practice is used by specialized wyvern riders to direct lightning? It would seem that you are indeed quite a knowledgeable researcher. I am very impressed with your ingenuity. And this revelation has invigorated me. Gather your equipment. We will be resuming work immediately. We are in for quite an exhilarating time. Researcher, I see you've arrived. A bit ahead of schedule, in fact. But, nonetheless, I can't find fault in punctuality. Please, come inside. There's no use in just standing out there. Don't mind the tingling sensation. It's nothing harmful, I assure you. There is a simple enchantment in this room that automatically cleans the clothing of whoever enters it. Though my workplace tends to be disordered and busy, I prefer to keep my quarters tidy as best I can. I find it helps to center the mind more efficiently. That and simple housework is both tedious and an unnecessary distraction, and I was eager to automate the process. I suppose so. To an outsider, having these things be standard would be considered quite luxurious. However, I think you'll find that once you gain some footing with your peers and continue to innovate and learn, such things will be made available to you. My quarters might seem fine in comparison to wherever you are currently staying, but the difference is not that much. Truth be told, I hardly make use of it all. I spend most of my time in the workshop and only return here to eat or rest whenever the burden of sleep deprivation interrupts my workflow. But we are getting sidetracked. I should thank you for making time to meet me here within my quarters, outside of our normal scheduled interactions. I understand that your curriculum is a demanding one, and normally I would be content to stay separated until we were to work again. However, there is a situation that I find myself needing help with, and you are the only one that I believe can handle the task with any amount of competence. That, and I don't have anybody else I can rely on. But it's mostly the former. As you are no doubt aware, progress on Dreamcatcher is halted for now, as new materials are unfortunately delayed for a time, leaving the project idle. Thankfully, the machine is holding stable and is not in need of anything immediately. It's a frustrating example of logistics gone wrong. Simple reality in all of its inefficient glory. However, where most would choose to do something wasteful with their off time, such as resting or, dare I say, socializing, I have instead been using this as an opportunity to complete smaller projects that I could not properly dedicate time to while Dreamcatcher dominated my attention. And it is one of these smaller projects that I request your help with, as it is turning out to be more taxing than I thought it would be. Yes. I haven't even told you what the project is yet, though I believe it's better just to show you. Here, hold on to this for now. It's a container of dehydrated meat that I've cut up into more manageable pieces. No, they are not for you. Don't eat any of them. They're not for human consumption. Whenever you are ready, please shake the container and brace yourself. It won't be too far away, and the sound always brings him running. That's enough of your questions. They will all be answered soon. Go ahead, researcher. There's no time to lose. And there you are, you little troublemaker. I finally managed to draw you out. It seems that you still abandon all notion of hiding when treats are offered. Researcher, give him a treat, quickly, before he dashes off again. There. That should keep him compliant for a while. I suppose this bears some explanation. Researcher, allow me to introduce you to Fleck, my pet. Yes, I have a pet. Though not originally mine, I took him in after... well, never mind that. That is correct. Fleck is indeed a pseudo-dragon. You seem rather familiar with them. Do they inhabit the bronze tops as well? Fascinating. They've been a part of Anthem's ecosystem ever since our mages opened a dimensional rift into the wellspring and made contact with the home of the dragons. It would seem, based on our research, that pseudo-dragons are native there as well, though what purpose they serve, we do not know. Nevertheless, despite being extraplanar creatures, they fit into the ecosystem quite well, and I'm sure you already know that they do make for fine companions. Many find them appealing, bearing the looks of a dragon, but much smaller and less intelligent. No, not you, Fleck. You are a very smart dragon. So clever and calm. Researcher, another treat if you would. This is why I asked for your help, researcher. Look here, at his wings. Yes, they are indeed heavily damaged. The membrane of the wings is torn to ribbons, and the actual limbs that they rest on have been broken. Luckily, the limbs have managed to heal, but as you can see, Fleck has been through quite a bit. With his wings in this condition, it's doubtful that he will ever fly again. Normally, magical healing would fix his injury after a mere few sessions, but when I brought this suggestion to the Directorate, the cost of attempting it was deemed too much to use on an animal, no matter how precious they are to someone. Don't attribute that decision to cruelty, researcher. It made logistical sense to do so. It's merely an unfortunate reality of life within the Institute. Every cost needs to be weighed, approved, and signed for. And mine was not. But Fleck has adapted to his injuries quite well. He's become very fast on his feet, as you saw earlier, and for the most part, he can still take care of himself. I do what I can to keep him happy and stimulated, and for the most part, it has worked. I believe that, despite everything he's endured, he is happy. But every now and again, I see him staring out of the windows, at the tops of the trees, or following the snowbirds as they fly, and I know that he misses the skies. So, I decided to dedicate my time so that he might be able to take to them once more. And I believe I've designed just the thing to make that happen. With the help you've been providing as of late, I've had ample time to myself, and I've spent it theorizing, designing, and crafting, until I've arrived at a potential solution. It's just on my desk there, if you want to have a look. Yes, it is quite something, is it not? A set of prosthetic wings that overlay where the original ones were and to replace their function entirely. They aren't going to perfectly mimic the feeling of the lost limbs, but I believe that it will be a vast improvement in Fleck's recovery, and hopefully will allow him to fly again. It's all right there, ready to be applied. And that is where you enter the equation. Attaching the harness system is not going to be difficult, but I don't want to risk Fleck becoming distressed and struggling too much during the process. This equipment is a bit sensitive, and furthermore, he might hurt himself if he thrashes around too much. So, I theorized that perhaps if he had someone to distract him and keep him occupied while I worked, then that would limit the risk of harm. It shouldn't take me very long to attach everything. So, would you assist me in this? Thank you, researcher. I find it difficult to express how much this means to both of us, so thank you. I've already set everything up and am ready to begin at any time. Perhaps it's a good idea for you to hold Fleck for a bit, just so he knows that you're not here to hurt him, and it will also give Fleck a chance to know your scent. That's it. If he struggles, just put him down and we shall try this again later. Well, it seems that Fleck likes you. You have quite the skill in handling animals. This might be easier than I thought. Come, bring him over to the desk. That's it. Now, gently place him into the open harness. Good. I can get started on attaching the harnesses now. Just keep him occupied for a while. Feed him a treat if he gets restless. But seeing how taken he appears to be with you, I'm not sure that will even be necessary. Very good. Beginning now. Everything is attaching well so far. These prosthetics will be bearing most, if not all, of the stresses of flight, so they need to be fashioned securely, as a mid-air failure would be disastrous. No, that's not what damaged his wings originally. Fleck's owner had an accident in his lab. Fleck survived, albeit with crippled wings, while his owner didn't. Fleck's owner and I were close, very close. The memory of him is often painful for me. You don't need to apologize. You couldn't have known that there was a dark answer to your innocent question. And that's the wings attached. Now just to tighten everything up one last time. It should be just a moment. And there. That should do it. Let's stand back a bit. Give him some room. Do you see that? He's moving them. The response looks smooth, not sticking anywhere. No mechanical failure so far. He doesn't seem to be struggling to lift them either. Seems my calculations on the load bearing were correct as well. This is good news. Very good news. Seems like he's eyeing the edge of the table. I think he might try and glide now. Yes, that's it. That's it. We did it. I think once he's more used to the wings, he'll be back to flying again. Thank you, researcher. With this, I've managed to write one small piece of a terrible tragedy. At least for one of us. By the text bringer, I'm exhausted. I haven't slept for a few days. No, it's fine. I'm fine. I've stayed awake longer than this before. Though, perhaps with this I've earned some time to waste with some rest. Yes. I'll go to sleep once I make sure that the harness doesn't cause any discomfort. Well, I suppose if you were to stay here and watch Fleck, I could go rest now. Although, if you are going to stay, I can at least... Very well. It seems that I'll be turning in then. Researcher, thank you. I'm pleased that you and I work together. Good night, I suppose. Researcher, you've returned. I believe that you were dismissed from work a few hours ago. Have you forgotten something? All of your personal effects should be on your desk, should you need to retrieve something. Just try to mind the cables if you would. What am I still doing here? Well, I noticed during our testing today that the timing of the inner rings is still not within acceptable parameters. It would seem that they are not fully synchronized in their rotations. Optimizing it now will yield better results down the road. So, I decided to stay in the workshop and continue my work. as I have many times before. As you know, the workshop has everything a research team needs in order to continue work unabated. Boxes of nutrient tubes, of which I have been consuming, treated water, and even a small cot area for research teams to sleep in shifts, should they feel the need to. Utilizing these amenities are not a foreign practice to me, as I'm sure you've noticed. Researcher, your concern is appreciated, but I assure you, I'm fine. I fail to see the relevance of this question, but it has been several days since I've properly slept. This is not surprising. You are well aware that once inspiration strikes me, I will find it imperative to work more. With that in mind, you may keep that disapproving look to yourself. I'm fine, both mentally and physically. A few more hours without rest is a perfectly modest sacrifice in exchange for making some headway. I have even arranged for Fleck to be looked after in my absence, if you're concerned about him. I'm sure that he is eager to test his new wings more thoroughly and engage in play with the other pseudo-dragons. He seems to be doing very well. No failures of his harness or trouble integrating with the others. I find myself satisfied with his recovery. A wonderfully successful project. I'm sure that Halcyon would also... Well, if you have come to retrieve anything, do it quickly. I have been distracted long enough. Researcher, don't believe that simply because we are co-workers, that you may pry into my personal life as you please. Observe my boundaries. I am aware of your concerns. You have not been shy about sharing them with me. Understand that I am working, and will continue to work after you leave. Then you aren't leaving. Why are you going to such lengths to have your way? Lest you forget, this is my project, and I will work it as I see fit. I have dismissed you for the evening, researcher, and I have not asked for any additional help. You thought I would say that. How very astute of you. What are you doing? What is this? An animated blanket? When did you have the time for... I do not find this humorous. Release me at once, researcher. I can't get out of it myself. Just let me go. I'm too tired. Very well. You win, researcher. It seems I have no choice but to retire. I assume that you are quite pleased with yourself. Preposterous. You are aware that I will have to log this incident, as it technically is insubordination. No matter what your intentions were, physically restraining your co-worker is an actionable offense. Though, I suppose given the circumstance, and the fact that this is quite comfortable, I will allow this incident to stay off the record. However, I caution you not to make a habit of this, researcher. Were you being honest when you said you intend to stand there and watch me fall asleep? Very well. Do as you will. Yes. You may ask me a question. What do you need to know? What is the reason that I work so much? Were you perhaps not listening when I requested that my private life be private? Yet, I suppose that in the interest of the project, as well as maintaining our personal bond, I will reluctantly explain myself. While I freely admit that I wish to avoid the topic entirely, I recognize the futility of continuing to attempt to conceal information from you, and your impressive stubbornness. I do not enjoy speaking about this, so please, bear with me. Project Dreamcatcher is not entirely a creation of my own imagination. Before I took over the project, it was largely created by the efforts of a single institute student, a young man named Halcyon. He was a brilliant mind and a vibrant soul, though many of the student body and faculty would contest this. He excelled in the fields of artifice and engineering. He created such mechanical wonders, complex and beautiful, like a finely tuned clock. But above all of that, he was also my younger brother. Dreamcatcher was conceived in his sophomore year. He believed that he could use artifice to magnify arcane power to heights only known to have occurred during the relay conflicts, when Anthem fought the dragons, all with the use of this machine. He spent much of his time and any scraps of research grants he could gain towards building the machine, until, during a test run, there was an accident. The faculty informed me of what had happened, and I rushed to the scene, but I was far too late. I was told that he felt no pain, that the gravitational forces folded space around him and he was just gone. Nothing of my only family left. All that remained was his work, and the project, now without a researcher, due to be abandoned. I could not allow that to happen. It would be an insult to my brother's memory. So I abandoned my own research, much to the shock of my peers, and took control of Dreamcatcher. And slowly, I've begun to piece it together from Halcyon's notes and my own knowledge. Ever since his passing, I suffer vivid nightmares that are only getting worse. I fear I possibly might be losing my hold on my own sanity. However, I'll endure it. I'll bear any burden to see my brother's lifelong work come to fruition and prove
against all previous doubts that his artifice, his magnum opus, was not in vain, and are to be respected. So there you have it, researcher, the crux of my behavior, born of grief and stubbornness. Now you know why this project means so much to me. No, there's no reason for you to be sorry. You couldn't have known. I should apologize for my behavior, for shutting you out when you only wish to help. I appreciate you, researcher. I am glad you are here. Though, now that you are forcing me to rest, expect to be worked twice as hard in the morning. Your interference means that there is much to make up for. But, for now, I'm fading. Stay if you'd like. I think I'll just rest for a while. Good night, researcher.